Okay, today we're going to talk about how to partition a directed line segment. So just to remind you, a line segment is a line that has two endpoints. So we're going to have a starting point and an ending point, kind of like GPS. So when we talk about GPS, you have a starting point, like say you're driving from Atlanta to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh is your ending point. And you might stop at different gas stations along the way. Well, if you stop at a halfway point, that means you're stopping at a point that is halfway between Atlanta, so same distance from Atlanta to the halfway point, and then from the halfway point to Pittsburgh. So that's kind of like partitioning a line segment, but we're going to do it on a coordinate plane and kind of think about what those fundamentals are of a GPS. So the first thing I want to ask you is you have a 32-foot long piece of rope. And we tie a knot to divide the rope, and we want it to be in a 3-to-5 ratio. So it's kind of like that Atlanta to Pittsburgh idea, but you have your rope, the whole thing is 32 feet long. Okay, so you have two endpoints to your rope, and the whole thing is 32. Think about how would you make it in a 3-to-5 ratio. So if you were trying to split a candy bar between your friends, and you want 3 pieces of it, and your friends get 5 pieces of it. So think about how many total pieces are you going to have in your candy bar. So that means I'm going to take 3 plus 5, and that's going to be 8 total pieces. Okay, 8 total pieces among my rope would be, let's see if I can do this right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 different pieces. And if it's 3-to-5, that means I get 3 pieces on one side. And there should be, so that's 3. And then there's 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the other side. So that is a ratio of 3-to-5. So that means that is where I would tie my rope. So when we talk about ratios, there's different ways that you can represent these ratios. So we can represent it with a colon. That means the left side is 2, the right side is 3, so it's a 2-to-3 ratio. 2 parts to 3 parts for 5 total pieces. You can also represent it as a fraction, 3/5 of the distance. If it's 3/5 of the distance, that means the total distance is 5, and we're going 3 pieces away from that, so that would be a 3-to-2 ratio. And then we can also say 1 out of 4, so that means that 4 is going to be our total. And if it's 1 out of 4, that means I'm separating something in a 1-to-3 ratio, 1 part to 3 parts. So when we're looking at the formula, this is the formula sheet, the formula that you would get for your EOC. And it looks really complicated, but it's actually pretty, conceptual. Meaning, x1, you have a starting point, and we'll call that starting point x1, y1. And then you also have an ending point. We'll call that ending point x2, y2. If I want to partition a line in a 3-to-2 ratio, that means I want to go 3/5 of the way there. I'm adding these 2 parts of the ratio together, 3 and 2, to get my total of 5. So what I want to do is I want to take the distance between x2 and x1. So let's say the total distance is 10. So if the total distance is 10, I'm going to take 3/5 of that distance, because that would give me that 3-to-2 ratio, 3 parts of 10. And if I found that, I would get 30/5, which is equal to 6, which would tell me that if I went 6 pieces, I would get 3/5 of 10. So if I split this into 10 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If I went 6 pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I would be 6 pieces to 4 pieces. And if you reduce that by 2, that's ultimately 3-to-2 ratio. Now, if we're actually given a certain coordinate, we find the number of pieces that are away from the starting point. But if we don't know what that starting point is, that would be our x1. So we add 6 to whatever that x1 is, and that's going to move us 6 units away from that point to find what the new coordinate is for a partition point. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to take the total amount of pieces, the total distance between your x values, and then this is the coordinate for your y values. You're finding the total distance away from your y values. you're splitting it up into the ratio so that you're traveling whatever amount that you need away divided by the total, which means if I want to go half of the way, there's 2 total pieces, and I want to move 1 part away from the beginning piece. And you're adding that to the starting point, x1 for the x value and y1 for the y value. Your ultimate answer for partitioning is going to give you a coordinate. It's going to give you an x value and a y value. So it's going to look like a coordinate. Because if you're thinking about GPS, I can start at Atlanta and I can go to Pittsburgh. This point right here is going to represent maybe the bathroom that I have to stop at on the way there, or maybe the McDonald's that you stop at on the way there. So this is the point that is partitioning in a certain ratio, and ultimately what we're trying to look for when we're finding a halfway point or a 3/5 of the way point when we're traveling.